Are you ready? I'm ready. I'm ready. Zoom, zoom. She repeated, you know, Sri Radhika? Urmila? You know her? Okay, we'll see. Okay. Okay. She's a Bir Krishna Maharaj fan. She likes Bir Krishna Maharaj a lot. Okay, no secret. And she said something that she heard me say, but I don't know if what I said was correct. So I got the impression that at least one of the topics you have a lot of enthusiasm for, and to the extent that you were thinking to write a book about it or an article about it or something. You already wrote it, okay. So in case some of you may not know, there's a number of books. I hope you brought some of your books with you for sale or, yeah, okay, good. I don't have a book, but he's got a few. And, Irma, one thing, I saw the handouts, the PDFs and things that you circulated, and there's a crossover at least 3 areas between what you're going to be speaking and what I'm going to be speaking, and Vaishnava etiquette. So the place I'd like to begin is to speak about what. Wow, there's too much sound. Yeah, turn the dial down. Chapter 29 of Canto 3, Srimad Bhagavatam, is a text, a section of the Bhagavatam by Kapila Dev speaking to Devahuti. Here's Kapila Dev speaking to Devahuti, painting. And the major section of Kapila's teaching to Devahuti is focused on Sankhya, and then naturally Sankhya leads to what Sankhya leads to. Sankhya leads to Bhakti. So chapter 29 is a description of Bhakti, explanation of devotional service. And that's all of us. How to achieve complete success in the process of devotional service. From its very beginning to the stage of perfection, and obstacles that stand in the way of achieving that standard of perfection. And one of the essential elements is respect. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his commentary on this section of Canto 3, expresses that Kapila Dev is speaking with exaggerated anger because there are persons that claim to be and present themselves as practitioners of bhakti, but they're not. Yes, I follow bhakti, but in reality they violate fundamental principles of bhakti. And that may be more than one of us in this room, or in the Hare Krishna movement. So preliminary is fine, and then what's real bhakti? Real bhakti, according to this section, must include, it does include respect for other living beings. So we're going to hear a little bit about Kapila Dev's teaching. And so Vishwanath says this violation makes Kapila angry. No, I don't hear the anger in his expression, but Vishwanath is more tuned in than I am, so he hears it and he writes about it in his commentary. Here's an example from Canto 3, Chapter 29. It's the first of four verses where he's expressing, one might say, this anger. I am present. He is an incarnation. He's the son of Devahuti, but he's an incarnation of the personality of Godhead. So he's speaking to his mother. Imagine having a conversation with your mother or your son, those of you that are ladies. Your son is the personality of Godhead. He's telling you, I am present in every living entity as a super soul. If someone neglects or disregards avagya, neglects or disregards that super soul everywhere and engages himself in the worship of the deity in the temple, not very complimentary. That is simply imitation. Now, imitation is the English translation Prabhupada has chosen for vidambanam, and it has different meanings, different shades of meaning, but that's a nice one. Imitation. You know, softer is it's not mature yet. Bhakti that's not mature. Later, he's going to describe it as karma mishra bhakti. Doing your duties in service to Krishna with some fruitive tinge within, and worshiping the deity for purification and for the sake of worship. Madarpanam, worshiping Krishna. So there's a nice painting. There's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, situated equally in the heart of every living entity, and his indication, we'll hear it several times. We'll go over this section. It's not optional. It's essential. Prabhupada's purport. In purified consciousness or Krishna consciousness, one sees the presence of Krishna everywhere. If, therefore, one only engages in deity worship in the temple and does not consider other living entities, then he is on the lowest grade of devotional service. One who worships the deity in the temple and does not show respect to others is a devotee on the material platform, or the lowest stage of devotional service. A devotee should try to understand everything in relationship with Krishna and try to serve everything in that spirit. To serve everything means to engage everything in the service of Krishna. If a person is innocent and does not know his relationship with Krishna, an advanced devotee should try to engage him in the service of Krishna. One who is advanced in Krishna consciousness can engage not only the living being, but everything in the service of Krishna. Another image depicting Super Soul is everywhere. In the flowers of the tree, and the peacock, and this and that. Krishna is everywhere. Now, extracting his message or taking something that's from earlier in the Bhagavatam, 126, Savai, let's say the verse together. Savai punksang paro dharmo yato bhaktiradhoksaje ahaitaki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. The supreme occupation or dharma for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. So that's where we want to be. Satisfied in the self. So here's a not Bhagavatam reference, but some author. Why look any further if you've discovered complete satisfaction? That's one of the key teachings that Prabhupada has given us. When there's satisfaction, it's easy to let go of lesser things. Say it conversely, when there isn't satisfaction, it's hard to let go of lesser things. The goal of human endeavors is to become happy. Who's going to argue? This is a fundamental, very, very beginning, first shloka of Priti Sandarbha. Now, are there newer people here who need some introduction to who is Jiva Goswami and what are his Sandarbhas? Does anybody need that? Would like that? You know who is Jiva Goswami? No. You can raise your hand. Okay. You know who's Lord Chaitanya? Okay. Lord Chaitanya had a number of very elevated personalities, in fact, eternal associates, to assist him in his service of the Sankirtan movement. And 6 of them are very well known. There are 6 that he sent to Vrindavan, called the Goswamis. 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. Jiva is one. And he was the most prolific. Like, he wrote a lot. He wrote several different commentaries on Srimad Bhagavatam. You know Srimad Bhagavatam. So, one of them was like Prabhupada did, verse by verse, called Krama Sandarbha. And then another is topic by topic, called the Sandarbhas, the 6 Sandarbhas, Shat Sandarbhas. And the last of those 6 is Priti Sandarbha. Priti means love. Priti, affection, love. And so in Priti Sandarbha, this is the first verse. The goal of the human being is attaining happiness and destroying suffering. No argument. Complete happiness and destruction of suffering is attained only by Priti for the Lord. That's the starting point. And then the rest is explaining the starting point. In order to get to that point where happiness is fully achieved and the distress or suffering is completely gone, love. Love for Krishna, not love for something. Love for money, or love for my dog, or love for something. Love for Krishna. That's the source of everything. But somehow or other, it seems like devotional service may not be working for us. We're practicing, and may not be getting too far. So, in this chapter 29 of Canto 3, Kapila Dev gives a very simple explanation, because we begin influenced by the modes of nature, goodness, passion, ignorance. Check the graphic, it's an interesting graphic. When we start our devotional service, inevitably we start in the modes of nature. We can't jump to the Priti platform. So our devotional service is faulty due to being performed with ulterior motivations. And here's a little chart. I'm not going to spend too much time because it's a nice chart. Maybe you should spend a little bit of time. Mode of ignorance has a motivation. And one of those motivations is one of our main topics, or the main topic of this particular presentation and tomorrow morning, envy. And when there's envy, then you can find these other things: pride, anger, getting back at someone, destruction. And he uses this phrase in his presentation, Kapila, Bina Drik, one who sees things separately. Bina Drik, feeling separate. And then feeling separate, I'm There's no compassion within. Then passion, rajas. We want to enjoy, we want to enjoy. To enjoy, we go after things to enjoy, and we like to show how great we are at enjoying. I can think of a few people that are like that. I won't say their name though. But you know too. Very, very famous person in USA today. And there's desire for objects other than the Lord. Note that pratak bhava is both for rajas and for sattva. But this particular pratak bhava for the mode of goodness, they want liberation. One is they want objects of this world separate from the Lord, and the other they want out of this place. They want liberation. Freedom from suffering, dutiful offerings to the Lord, liberation. So 3 modes of nature, 3 motivations, 3 different mentalities, and they're in contrast to pure devotional service. Here is a very nice definition given in Canto 3, Chapter 29 of pure devotional service towards the beginning, verses 11 and 12. The manifestation of unadulterated devotional service is exhibited when one's mind is at once attracted to hearing the transcendental name and qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is residing in everyone's heart, just as the water of the Ganges flows naturally down towards the ocean. Such devotional ecstasy, uninterrupted by any material condition, flows towards the Supreme Lord. Those of you that like Srimad Bhagavatam, you recognize the language. It's very similar, almost identical with the language of Queen Kunti, who's praying to Krishna, please let my mind be like that, just flowing inexorably downstream, like the Ganges flows downstream to the sea. Let my mind be like that, flowing to you. So after that definition, Kapila gives a little explanation that illustrates that consciousness of pure devotion. That is, when they're offered liberation, the mode of goodness fruit, they don't accept it. A pure devotee does not accept any kind of liberation. He lists 5 kinds of liberation, even though they are offered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Dhruva is a nice example. He started in the material sphere like anything. It was to get back at his stepmother. And it was not just his father's kingdom because he's the eldest son. He wanted a kingdom better than his father, better than his father's father, better than his father's father's father. That means the spiritual world. And by the contact, by Narada's association, he underwent great austerities and etc., 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 and chanting of his mantra. And he achieved perfection. When Lord Vishnu came and offered him whatever he wants, he was saying no thank you to any material anything. I want the association of Narada. I want the association of your pure devotees. Shri Shri Radha Shyama Sundar Ki Jai. So how to get there? What is one supposed to do to achieve this state of consciousness? Well, guess what? It's right in the chapter. From verse 15 to 18, I'm just going to read the verses. Starting with 15. And note that he's going to speak about worshiping the deity form of the Lord, because that's one of the means of getting to that stage of pure devotional service. A devotee must execute his prescribed duties, which are glorious, without material profit, without excessive violence, so that's passion, without excessive violence, that's ignorance. One should regularly perform one's devotional activities. The devotee should regularly see my statues in the temple. Now this is a mother speaking, the son speaking to his mother. But he's the personality Godhead, she knows. The devotee should regularly see my statues in the temple, touch my lotus feet, and offer worshipable paraphernalia and prayer. He should see in the spirit of renunciation from the mode of goodness and see all and every living entity as spiritual. Hint, that's, there's obstacles. When there's obstacles and one doesn't do that, then it's adampanam, it's imitation. Text 17. The pure devotee should execute devotional service by giving the greatest respect to the spiritual master and the acharyas. He should be compassionate to the poor and make friendship with the persons who are his equals. It's a Majjhima injunction. But all his activities should be executed under regulations and with control of the senses. We're going to hear a lot about all of these things as we go forward. Finally, a devotee should always try to hear about spiritual matters and should always utilize his time in chanting the holy name of the Lord. Not only in Kali Yuga, but this is not Kali Yuga that he was speaking. Chanting of the holy name is for any time. His behavior should always be straightforward and simple. And although he is not envious, but friendly to everyone, he should avoid the company of persons who are not spiritually advanced. So that's the recommendation of the sadhana to get to the stage of shuddha, or pure devotional service. And then he repeats something. Text 20. It's a metaphor. As the chariot of air carries an aroma from its source and immediately catches the sense of smell, Krishna uses a similar metaphor. Similarly, one who constantly engages in devotional service in Krishna consciousness can catch the Supreme Soul, who is equally present everywhere. So that's encouraging. And then comes text 21. That's like a splash of cold water in the face. Imitation. There's characteristic consciousness of someone who has achieved pure devotional service. This is, many of you are experienced devotees. There's probably some newer devotees. You're probably one of those newer devotees here. You familiar with Bhagavad Gita? Yeah? Do you know the verse that starts Brahmabhuta Prasannatma? Just started reading. So listen, I'll say it slowly. It's 4 parts. Brahmabhuta means self-realization. Brahmabhuta, self-realization. Brahmabhuta Prasannatma means, prasanna means happiness. Atma means the soul. They're happy within. Brahmabhuta Prasannatma. Na sochati na kankati. Not hankering or lamenting. Because they're happy within. We already touched on that topic. The Priti Sandarbha idea. When you're happy within, you don't need anything. And something that's temporary and it's gone, you don't lament. Na sochati na kangsati. Then there's two more. Samak sarveshu bhuteshu. See all living entities equally. We already touched on it from Kapila's teaching. Sarva bhuteshu, all living entities. Sarva bhuteshu. Samak, seeing everyone equally. You can see distinctions, but you see the soul within. And the super soul within. So then mad bhaktim labate param. So those three things, prasanatma, no hankering, lamenting, see all living entities equally, that's a very high stage. And that's where devotional service begins. We're not there yet. Who knows how long it's going to take us to get there? So Prahlad was there, and he was in great difficulty again and again and again at the hands of his demoniac father, the best of the demons, his father. He remained undisturbed because of constant remembrance of the personality of Godhead. In our conditioned state, it's almost impossible task to always remember Krishna. We say the verse, Smartavya Satatam Vishnu or Vishmartavya Najata Chit. Sarvavedi Nashedashur Etayor Kinkara. All the other regulations of spiritual life are kinkaras, they're servants of this one principle. Always remember, never forget. Right now, our devotional service, we don't have that power. So if that's required before you engage in devotional service, what's that? It's, some of you are from India, you probably don't know what Catch-22 is. Anybody? Anyway, there's a prerequisite to get something, and to get that something, you have to, you can't get the something without the prerequisite. But we don't have the prerequisite, so you can't get the something. That's Catch-22. Damned if you do and damned if you don't. It's like, in other words, nice English description. Kapila explains this 21. We already read it, the translation. What causes the power of devotional service to be blocked? And if you know what the cause of what blocks devotional service, you have a good start to remove the thing that's blocking devotional service. Again, the translation, because this is the theme of the whole time together. I am present in every living entity as a super soul. If someone neglects or disregards that super soul everywhere and engages himself in the worship of the deity in the temple, that is simply imitation. So what is that which blocks one from seeing super soul everywhere? We don't have that spiritual vision. Then there's a reason. That's according to the acharyas, according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Jiva Goswami, commenting on these 4 verses, 21, 22, 23, 24. It's envy in differing degrees. Lighter, darker, more dark, really dark. You'll never achieve anything in devotional service, stated 4 times, unless you understand that the Lord is in every living entity and respect every living entity. Pretty simple. So both of these commentators indicate this is stages of envy. So that's the title of this evening's presentation. The principal obstacle in pure devotional service, or in devotional service, which is pure devotional service, is envy, according to these personalities. So here's another nice little graphic. And here's the 4 in these indicated in these 4 verses, starting with 21. then 22, then 23, 24. Avagya is kind of, a haughtiness or arrogance, or then just not paying attention. That's what that fellow is doing on the left side. He's just ignoring others. Next, a little darker, is indifference or turning away. Not just neglect, but turning away. Then dvesha, hatred. You wish ill against somebody else. And then you criticize that somebody else. That's the darker of the four. Sadhu Ninda or Vaishnava Ninda. And that's not just not nice, it's an offense. It's one of the principal offenses against the chanting of the holy name. Each stage grows more severe, both internally and externally. So we're going to go through those four, starting with the first one. Avagya. And there's the same verse again. You saw the verse. There's the Sanskrit vidambanam. Here's the translation again for the third time. I am present in every living entity as the Supersoul. If someone neglects or disregards that Supersoul everywhere and engages himself in the worship of the deity in the temple, that is simply imitation. There is somebody worshiping a deity. It's a nice looking deity, huh? And he's offering a ghee lamp and paying no attention and disregarding. The other living entities, although philosophically we know within the heart of every living entity, there's a nice cow right next to the altar. That's a very fortunate cow. But, there's a dog, and what is he doing there next to the altar? So, it's imitation, vidambanam. So we're going to look at this first one a little bit. Vidambanam means looking down on others. And there's two parts of the Sanskrit term. Ava means looking down, like, the word avatar, one who descends, ava. That's what that phrase means, or that syllable means. And gya means to know. So it's the beginning of envy. It's mild, but a little haughty. It's seeing someone from above. I'm holding myself above. I'm looking at others. I'm the Brahmana doing the arti, and I'm not paying attention to others. Not respecting is a form of disrespect. Yes? I'll say it again. Not respecting is a form of disrespect. So there's the positive respect. When you're doing arti, you're busy doing arti, but before and after, acknowledging the presence of others and acknowledging their presence, offering something of respect. Something. It manifests as looking down on others. There's a fellow looking down on others. One feels I'm superior to him. And it's slight, but it's there. And a sensitive person can feel it. And sometimes it gets a little bit more than just slight, and it's very noticeable. Outwardly, nothing is said or done, but inwardly one relegates others to a lower level. So that's his first. Envy, in a subtle phrase. And there's a result. And the result is worship may be going on, but it's imitation worship. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary says it weakens bhakti. A very simple example. I mean, it's nighttime now, but during the daytime, when the sun is shining, there's lots of light. When there's some clouds in the sky, It's the same sun that's in the sky, but all the illumination power of the sun isn't coming to us because the clouds in the sky. The clouds can move, and then it's a full bright sky again, full bright sun. So like clouds in the sky, this haughtiness or condescension or slight looking down upon others, it withdraws or weakens the full power of bhakti. So we don't get subjectively experience the full power of bhakti. We can practice bhakti for a long time and not get its full effect. As long as that neglect of others is there. So it's nice to understand things through a story, so I'm going to tell you a story. Once upon a time story. It's a famous story in Vrindavan. It's not a scriptural, it's just a Vrindavan story. So there was this Brahmana, who's pictured on the right side here. He lived in Bengal. Not to pick on Bengalis, but he's a nice Brahmana from Bengal. But he was a little, he was wealthy and very learned and a little proud. And when he reached a mature stage of life, he decided to move to Vrindavan. When he got to Vrindavan, he found a sadhu. He liked the sadhu very much, and he approached the sadhu and asked the sadhu for shelter. Could you give me diksha? And the sadhu kept putting him off. He didn't exactly say no, but he didn't say yes. And then at a certain point, after he saw this, little determination of this gentleman, this Brahmana, to receive mantra diksha, he said, I'll give you initiation in a week, but you have to bring back someone who's lesser than you. That was the condition. And he thought, I'm Mr. Macho. I've got this and that and the other qualification. But he was in Vrindavan, and so he went about in Vrindavan and looking for someone lower than him. And one of the first places he went was to a street sweeper, a bungi. And he went to the bungi colony, because bungis live together. And he thought, well, his profession isn't so noble, but he's always involved in the dust of Vrindavan, and he's so fortunate. I can't consider him lower than me. Maybe a cow. But he was thinking of the cow and meditating on what the cow is and does. And he said that the cow just eats grass and gives milk to nourish everybody. And, the cow is a celebrated personality. So he's not lower than me. And then he thought, maybe a dog. There's dogs in Vrindavan. But when he started thinking more about the dog, he said, a dog has this capacity of being very faithful, and I'm not like that. So I can't say the dog is lower than me. So I know my stool. Then he thought, but this is just prasadam. So I can't say it's, think that the stool is lower than me, but inside that stool there's a worm. Krishna does Kaviraj, right? Lower than a worm and stool. Then he was thinking, yeah, but what does a worm do? It takes something that's just like disgusting and it turns it into fertilizer, something that's useful for other living entities. So he couldn't find, in a week he came back to the guru. He really wanted diksha, but he said, I couldn't find anyone lower than me. He said, very well, I will give you initiation. Because he had become free from that residual or, modest, trace-like quantum of pride. He wasn't, a boastful fellow. There was something there that initially the spiritual masters said, first find someone lower than you. So that's a Vrindavan story. There's another example that's from Mahabharata. I'm looking at our nice young lady in the front row up here. You know what Mahabharata is? Oh, you do? Really? Okay, so there's, you know who Duryodhana is, and you know who Dronacharya is. Okay, so Dronacharya was the military teacher for both the Pandavas and the Kauravas. And in the course of time, Dronacharya decided he wanted to make a request of Yudhisthira. You go throughout the kingdom and find someone who's inferior to you. And separately, privately, he told Duryodhana, find someone who's superior to you. A week later, Yudhisthira came back saying he couldn't find anybody inferior to him, not a single person. Everyone was superior to him. And Duryodhana went out and he couldn't find anybody superior to him. There's nobody superior to me. Not one single person. So the teacher, Dronacharya, assessed this fellow, young fellow, Yudhisthira, he's humility personified, and he'll be a fit ruler for the Kauravas, the Kuru dynasty. And this Duryodhana, he's too proud. He can't be a pious king. He'll ultimately ruin the Kuru dynasty just by this one thing. So, what's the lesson? It's a nice story. What's the lesson? Humility, please. And humility, this absence of avagya, is the condescension or considering oneself superior. Real devotional service starts at Yudhisthira's stage of humility. You know, mad bhaktim labhate param. Then devotional service begins. Before this, our devotional service is vidambanam, or imitation, or pretense. We have to be at Yudhisthira's level. We'll hear, you know, there's some good news. This sounds like, gosh, I'm heading for the door. Before coming here, I spoke on some of these topics in New Jersey, and there's a nice devotee that came to me afterwards. He wasn't crying, but he was kind of like crying, and said, for the past 6 months, I've been coming before the deity and offering prayers to the deity, and now I don't know if I was doing the right thing because I'm this imitation devotee. Maybe I should stop worship. That wasn't the right message. Not stop worshiping deity. Just start offering respect to others, recognizing the deity is in the heart of others in the form of supersoul. And respect the deity here and the deity there, not just the deity there. Kapila wants to impress upon it the result of innocent haughtiness. And what happens, the result is it amplifies and becomes more serious. And it has this, as this phrase given by Vishwanath, it has the power to block the power of bhakti. Bhakti is all powerful. Bhakti is all powerful. And there's something that has the power to block bhakti. This envy. When we perform devotional service with such an attitude, very soon we will see, if we're a little sensitive, hypocrisy. And why we don't feel full satisfaction. Remember the verse from Canto 1, Chapter 2. Ye not mastu prasidati. We try to get satisfaction in seeking appreciation from others. Problematic, isn't it? We don't find those problems in the association of devotees, right? If there's even a slight, here's a hard one. When I said this in New Jersey, they went, uh-oh. If there's a slight difference between what we are doing when we're with others, and when we're alone, this is vidambana, hypocrisy. So in other words, Super Soul is watching. You're not alone. This hypocrisy will grow because of avagya, disrespect, fundamental, slight, but disrespect. That's the first stage of the disease. The remedy, this is Prabhupada's recommendation. When you detect that it's there, supposing you don't detect that it's there, you won't put on the brake pedal. But if you detect that it's there, if we feel ourselves higher than someone else, catch ourselves and see their connection with Krishna. Cure. Because everything's connected to Krishna. That's it. That's our teaching. There's one source, and we're all from that source. If he, this other person, is connected to Krishna, how is he lower than us? He's a part of God. When we regard material nature, it belongs to Krishna. How can we exploit material nature? So how can we see act in Krishna consciousness without seeing in relation to Krishna? So bring our conscious awareness that everything is connected to Krishna. Hint, that's the theme of this whole chapter. Supposing, it goes a little bit further, stage 2. Upeksha. There's the verse and the translation. One who worships the deity. Remember, that was in these 4 verses that said the process of bhakti that can get one to pure devotional service. One who worships the deity of Godhead in the temples, but does not know that the Supreme Lord as Paramama is situated in every living entity's heart, must be in ignorance, and is compared to one who offers oblations into ashes. Swaha, that the pujari is taking a little ghee with his ladle and pouring it into the fire. We heard this nice description in Canto 4, Chapter 1. We're just read this. These Swaha, she had 45 sons. And there are all fire gods. So when you are offering these Swaha, their names. There are devotees that know the names of these, the impersonal, Prabhupada writes, the impersonal, they know the names and they say mantras honoring the names of these 45 or 49 different fire gods. Swaha, and with mantras and mantras and mantras. No, you may not say the mantras, but that's what's happening. The fire god, fire, Agni, is receiving the fire, the oblations in the fire. Swaha. So, but why pour the ghee into ashes? It's the wrong thing. So, commentary by these 2 acharyas, upeksha means due to stronger envy, one wants to avoid the person one is envious of. When there's a little haughtiness, one doesn't mind associating despite harboring envy, but now you want to avoid that person. Upeksha. You have some unpleasant feelings. And the mind's justification from envy, there's something bad about that person. So I want to keep away. And the disease is more advanced. Forgetting, while they may be wrong, the Lord is still in their heart. So we should not hold aversion to that person. Upeksha. And it gets worse. The result is it gets worse. No result. Sometimes you feel like this. Chant and chant and chant, and no result. Right here in Naperville, for those of you that aren't from Naperville, there was this, from our Festival of the Holy Name for many years, there was this expression, And there was a request for Nityananda Pranati to come and give a seminar on, the topic was still chanting, still reading, but hardly any progress. So this is addressing the same thing. It's not, this is the only thing, but it's certainly a contributing factor. It's the impurity within the heart blocking the power of bhakti, or blocking the power of the holy name. We don't feel a result. And in fact, like running and running and running in the same place. And when we keep distance from such persons, and we don't have that affection for others who have Krishna within their heart, it starts to move towards animosity and resentment. And, it's hurtful to the person who is on the other. It's hurtful to us, and it's hurtful to the person because we are not going to advance. When you don't advance, and what are you going to do when you keep not advancing? And then the other person who is on the receiving end of that ill will. Many persons leave devotional service because there's no progress. Dvesha. It's darker. Active hatred. There's the translation. One who offers me respect, but is envious of the bodies of others, and is therefore a separatist. Notice in the Sanskrit, bina darshanaha. Second line, bina darshana. Prabhupada has chosen to translate it as a separatist. They see themselves separate. It's like, I feel alone and isolated. We're going to hear some more about this. It's a disease, unfortunate disease. Loneliness is a little sharing. As many of you know, one of the things I've been doing for umpteen years is visiting universities. And generally when there's an invitation to come to this or that or the other university, they ask for topics, or they ask, can we have a little menu of topics we can pick from? And so I send them a list. It depends on what the previous visits were. But the request is overcoming negative emotions. College kids. Overcoming negative emotions. The art of meditation. Overcoming negative emotions. And loneliness is one of those. And one of the things that I share with them is, some years ago, in the UK, they spent so much money dealing with loneliness. They made a ministry of loneliness. They put money in the ministry of loneliness instead, to help people that are feeling lonely. Because it's like, it's major. Water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. Feeling isolated and lonely. This is this bina darshanaha. We're going to hear it again a few times. But that's the separatist. They're separate, bina. Like bina prakritir ashtada. Separated material energies. Ashtada, 8 separated material energies. So bina, separate. Darshana, seeing oneself separate. There's a supreme, and I'm separate. There's the living entity that's part of the supreme, and I'm separate. And so it's envy towards the supreme, and is manifest. Envy towards the supreme is manifest as envy towards others. Such a person never attains peace of mind because of his inimical behavior towards other living entities. Inimical, dvesha. That's, Dvishita has the same root, Dvishita or Dvesha. We cannot pray in love and live in hate and still think we're worshiping God. This is not a Hare Krishna guy saying this, but it's the same message. So a little bit more on this active hatred, because this is Kapila's teaching. It's a problem. It blocks bhakti. One who desires that something bad happens to the other. Sometimes he even prays, "My dear Lord, let him understand that he's not a devotee. Show him that he cannot do this to me." There's one place, won't say where, one famous preacher somewhere in some part of the world, he was fond of making sure other people knew what a good preacher he was. And when he found out in his country that there was a case against ISKCON, he put on the internet, "This is because Krishna is punishing them because of their offense to him." Well, it's, it happened. It happens. Some dvesha or dvishita. Practically impossible when one gets to that stage. You can try, but you have to be very elevated and very pure to help such a person. And bina darshanaha, feels no empathy for others' suffering, and therefore he doesn't get any peace. When someone hurts us, what happens? Mind goes to that hurt, it goes to the person. When you're doing something and you're chanting japa or just doing something, and your mind is on that hurt or that person or that situation. No peace on the giving and the receiving end. So in the earlier stages, it's more easy to control. This one is more difficult, the dvesha stage. And then there's a stage beyond the dvesha stage, and that's criticizing another devotee. Very serious. My dear mother, Kapila Dev is speaking to his Devahuti, even if he worships me with proper rituals and paraphernalia, a person who is ignorant of my presence in all living entities never pleases me by the worship of my deities in the temple. One manifests one's hatred in a visible way by blaspheming the devotee. And saying blah, 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 and thinking, what's wrong with my saying blah, blah, blah? I'm only speaking the truth. Have you heard something like that before? I've heard something like that before. It's compared to the mad elephant offense. So you send a mad elephant into your garden. You get a crushed garden. The mad elephant offense. It's very serious. It's very serious. Say it 3 times. It's very serious. Criticizing. We'll hear it again a few times in the course of this whole discussion. Sharp arrows. We're going to get some nice examples of this from Scripture. Sharp arrows. This is from Canto 11, Chapter 23. This is Krishna speaking to Uddhava Gita. Sharp arrows which pierce one's chest and reach the heart do not cause as much suffering as the arrows of harsh, insulting words spoken by materialists that become lodged within the heart. Arrows of insulting words is much more powerful than arrows. The devotee that we hurt will feel pain for so long, and Krishna is naturally not pleased. So beware. Don't indulge in that kind of activity. Here's a scriptural example. This is a painting, I think it's an artificial intelligence painting, of Draupadi laughing at Duryodhana. So many of you know when the Pandavas came back to Hastinapur after the demise of their father, they came back under the advice of Vyasadeva, go back to Hastinapur for shelter. When they came back to Hastinapur, they weren't received nicely. And one of the things that happened was the kingdom was divided. I mean, Yudhishthira, the eldest, he's the eligible candidate, but Duryodhana had become attached to his, position. So he gave him a part of the kingdom, half the kingdom. The half the kingdom was a forest, Khandava forest. And this thing, that thing, the other thing happened, and there was a big fire. Agni wanted the herbs to cure. He had too much ghee from Swaha, oblations into the fire. So he wanted to devour the herbs that were found in the forest by burning the forest. But every time he tried, Indra put showers of rain. So Agni asked for protection from Arjuna, so Arjuna protected, etc., etc. And in the forest was a creature, or an entity, a person, named Mayadanava. Mayadanava was saved, rescued by Arjuna. So Mayadanava, it's a nice, complex Mahabharata story. Mayadanava came before Arjuna and said, "You saved my life. I'd like to do something for you. Please tell me and I'll do it." And Arjuna said, "I don't protect people because I get something. I do because it's my nature, it's my duty." So Krishna said, "Take something." Krishna said, "Mayadanava is very, very, very expert. He can build a nice palace for Draupadi and Kunti and all of you. You can have a nice place to stay. Ask him to do that." So he did. He built a nice palace. And it was a better palace than Hastinapur. And so they had a big festival. The Pandavas had a big festival and they invited the devotees from Hastinapur to come. And Duryodhana came. But it was like a mystical place. You know the story. The place, one of the features is that what looked like land was water, and what looked like water was land. So he was walking across a patio and he fell into a pond of water. The version that I've heard is because Krishna was also there, because it was a big festival, he came all the way from Dwarka, and his queens were there, and the queen started laughing. Yudhishthira said, "Don't laugh, it's not nice." Krishna said, "Laugh." Because he wanted the battle. He wanted to annihilate the demons, and chief amongst them was Duryodhana and his cohorts. So this narration says that Draupadi also laughed at Duryodhana, like father, like son. And those words entered the heart of Duryodhana and lodged in his heart. And many other things happened after that that was hurtful to Draupadi and the Pandavas and others. Duryodhana was remembering this all the time. Words not carefully chosen can be very dangerous. How much pain can one inflict upon a living entity? Krishna doesn't want anything to do with such a person. A person who is ignorant of my presence in all living entities never pleases me by the worship of my deities in the temple. And subjectively, one's not going to feel Krishna's presence, even in the deity. What to speak of elsewhere, although he's everywhere. Krishna turns away from such a person. And there's envy in our hearts. So, what's the verse? Who's our Bhagavad Gita buff? There's a verse in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, the reason that we take birth in the material world is two things. Isha dvesha samutena dvandva mohina bharata. You all know the verse. So it's there. Anyone that has one of these things, a body, it's a sign, it's a flag. Icha and dvesha, or raga and dvesha, same meaning. Raga and Dvesha. We all have it. Raga or Icha, to envy, it's there. We not want to advertise it, but the body is an advertisement. One who knows the Bhagavad Gita knows it's a fact. So we should allow ourselves to justify this or that or the other feeling of Dvesha. So what to do? Come tomorrow morning. The Kapila is going to give a solution. That's a nice one. It's not like snap your fingers, but it's a process. Let's do a little review. In the beginning, he gave a very wonderful definition of bhakti. He gave a description in 4 verses of how bhakti can be cultivated, the sadhana for bhakti. And then he described the obstacle, even when you're doing the sadhana for bhakti, because in that sadhana, part of it is deity worship. It's certainly part of a sadhana bhakti for one who's in the practice stage, deity worship. And then there's obstacles to that sadhana of this name, that name, the other name. And 2 things. The principle is not seeing super soul, not seeing the presence of the Lord within the heart of others, but seeing here on the altar, on the deity form, yes, and the heart of others, neglect. And then worse, and then worse, and then worse. Never pleasing to Krishna. Never pleasing to Krishna. And then everything. Because that's our philosophy. That's Ishopanishad, and everything belongs to Krishna. Everything is from Krishna. He's the source of everything. It's his. So it's meant to be used in his service. So not having that understanding, then bhakti is incomplete. Adambanam, imitation. Some of you have children. Some of us have many children with no children. But, how do children learn? By imitation. No, it can sound pejorative or a negative description, but just practically speaking, mom and dad come to the temple and they something. They come before the deity and they palms folded, so the kids palms folded. Sometimes I see parents when they want their child to learn to pay obeisances, they push their head to the floor. Whoa! That's how you teach a child to pay obeisances. You push their head to the floor. I don't say anything, but it's but that's how one can learn. Maybe not by force, but by following the example of. You can say that's imitation, but it's just not mature. But you do the not mature and you can do it consistently. We'll hear some nice examples, and it becomes second nature. Prabhupada says, you practice at something, we may have our nature, conditioned nature. You practice at something, becomes second nature. Just like, our children that learn to play harmonium. I don't know how to play harmonium, but Dayal Mukunda, after playing harmonium since he was a little kid, it's like riding a bicycle. You don't have to think about it. You get on your bicycle and zoom, off you go. But when you first started riding a bicycle, it was clumsy. And then you don't think about it. That's a motor skill. But then spiritual skills are it's just practice. And practice going in the right direction, please. That the going in the right direction has already been identified. So supposing I'm going not in the right direction because I started not in the right direction by the modes of nature being influenced and so forth, then what? Well, come by tomorrow morning. Well, you can read ahead if you want. He goes into the cure. Okay. An hour and 15 minutes we've been going. Any comments or questions? Jivana Jivana.
While it is certainly brings the heart down to see the intensity of envy that can manifest and the consequence of it, it's still very enlivening because it feels like we're going through a surgery to hear this, and it's in that sense enlivening. What I really appreciate, I read ahead this morning, what I really appreciate is even to see the main point about seeing everything being sacred that Krishna is in everywhere, in everyone's heart.
Yeah.
I really appreciate also earlier in text 15, he uses the word mahiyasha for one's swadharma, to do one's work, to even see one's occupational duty as glorious. And so for me, that was powerful, to even see the workplace or the occupational duty as my sacred duty for Krishna. The question I had, Maharaj, is in these 4 levels, it seems like the first 3 are more internal and less external, and the 4th one is overtly external, where the envy comes out in criticism.
Dvesha is rather before criticism. There's wishing ill of others, and it's not just a notional; it's emotional. So, and generally emotional comes out also, without vilifying, but just wishing them ill. Like this fellow that was proud of his preaching power and the prowess, and on the internet, it wasn't exactly. It's just the shades. That's all. But it's a nice appreciation. Go ahead.
My question was: it seems to me that to be sensitive and careful about stages, first and second stage especially, of envy, requires strong self-awareness. Watching the movement of the internal heart. When you're in 3 and 4, pretty much anyone can detect it, that's happening. But in the initial stages, there's got to be, you can't get feedback necessarily. You have to be able to.
Well, if you have thoughtful persons and well-wishers in the right way at the right time, they can tap you on the shoulder. Now, how to give feedback? That's a nice question. I think it's something that Irmala is going to be speaking about, apology. Huh? On Sunday. Okay. I'll be with the Chinese devotees on Sunday, but you're going to speak about it. So come on Sunday. Oh, Sunday. Sunday or Monday? Monday. Sunday. Okay. Then if it's Sunday, I'll hear it. Okay. So this is back before apology, just detecting.
Yeah.
That's your point. And if it's subtle and it's just a trace, chances are we're not going to detect it. But others can, when somebody's a little proud, a little haughty, and it's not so difficult to detect it.
You need refined friends to be able to help you there.
Yeah, you have people that are refined that can tap you on the shoulder and say, my dear friend. Not, pointing fingers and blasting.
Last question, Maharaj. I noted that one of the slides said when there's dvesha, when there's explicit hatred in the heart, that it's a very hard place to return from.
Yes, yeah.
Is a symptom of that people really struggle with forgiveness when you're having that kind of dvesha in the heart?
Do people struggle? Yes. When they have that feeling in the heart, yes. Now, most likely, you and I, and probably most of the rest of us in the room, we know some situation somewhere where there's this thing, tension, and then because there's disagreement, or there's words spoken or actions taken or something, it's really hard to move those people. Anyway, so that's one of the topics, melting hearts, and ways that you can make the heart harder, ways that can make the heart softer. So that takes some spiritual purity and some elevated consciousness to be able to do that. But we need such people in this world because there's a lot of that darkness in the world, and people become impacted by it. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Relating to the avagya, was it the first stage?
Avagya.
Avagya. My question is that we, like Kanishta, Madhyama, Uttama, we have some hierarchy in terms of devotional progression and sight. Yes. And I mean, really, the Uttama is the only one that sees everyone the same. So I'm wondering, if you're somewhere lower than that, to me it seems that there is something natural to seeing someone lower, someone equal, someone higher. Yeah. So then what does it literally mean to see someone lower than you?
Okay, there are two things. There are three things, but there's the external and then there's the soul. So that Pandita Samadarshana, or that seeing all living entities equal, is on the spiritual platform. And the other is on the material platform, largely. And from the material platform, there's distinctions. There's hierarchies. And that's one of the topics we'll be discussing. Second thing, although recognizing hierarchies of even the coverings and the degrees of covering and the lesser degrees of covering and so on, in all circumstances, don't forget the super soul is within, and the soul is within, side by side with the super soul. So dealing with persons differentially, so the intelligence is that differential element, capacity, but that's on the material side, and then the spiritual side is they're to be respected. So you and I, we're not Uttama Adhikaris, but we can function on both platforms to some degree. And the more elevated consciousness becomes, the more refined both of those distinctions become. The greater the ability to see everyone equally, while recognizing differences and respecting appropriately according to the differences. Refined intelligence. And there's a nice slide I like a lot. The capacity to do these two things comes from submission to the spiritual master or the representative of Krishna. And otherwise, It's not going to happen. Like the Kaliya topic yesterday evening. I can't do this on my own.
So then the seeing someone lower than you would really just be manifested as not seeing Supersoul within them.
Yeah.
But there's the hierarchy is still there.
Yes.
But it's just,
Yes. Like, that Raja story, the worm in the stool. But while Krishnadas Kaviraj is just saying, I'm lower than the worm in the stool. Nandimukhi.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
She came all the way from New Jersey.
New Jersey is very cold, and Chicago has more sunshine. Thank you so much for hosting us. Two thoughts. The first is the beginning statement you made, which is provided by Jiva Goswami, that happiness is the goal of all human endeavors. I think if I was preached to this idea, say 12 years ago, then I perhaps could not take it, because I'm not particularly after happiness, but I think that's largely due to my ignorance of what happiness is, and how I understood happiness now is, I feel like it's more about offering love, receiving love, and then tasting and sharing the bhakti rasas that are churned in this process. That is perhaps the happiness that Jiva Goswami was talking about. And the second thought is on the avajna, the first stage of enviousness. I remember in the earlier chapters, Kapila Deva explained Sankhya philosophy in great details.
Oh, yeah.
And in that manifestation of the material elements, false ego is the first one to come, and from false ego, all the other elements get developed.
Yeah.
And simultaneously, the false ego is also the last one to go.
Yeah.
And the most difficult to eradicate.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's in this situation is kind of the same. Avajna is the initial beginning stage. It's perhaps in terms of severity, it is the lightest, but it is also the breeding ground
from which the others come.
For the other stages to come. And I am just feeling like it is also the first one to come and the last one and the most difficult one to eradicate. Thank you.
Okay. All the way in the back. You have to come forward, get the microphone. You always have good questions. I'm waiting for a good question.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I'm still trying to phrase the question, but my question is, it sounds like when Supersoul in all living entities is being referred, if I'm going well with 100 people, but I'm not, my avagnya or other aspects are not going well with one person, it's important to focus on that piece and eradicate it, not just complying. Oh, everybody is well. It's just this one person that I'm not going well.
Yeah. So be present. In other words, when you're with someone, there's many people, but be present when you're with someone. And you can't simultaneously, because you're not super soul, you can't simultaneously be present with everyone. But when you're with whoever you're with.
My question, Maharaj, is if I have these feelings in either of the stages with one individual.
Which feeling?
In either of any of the 4 stages.
Okay.
If I'm not getting along with one person, it is still important to work on that.
Oh, then I didn't understand your question. A recommendation in response to your question, a recommendation is go back to square one, or go back to the foundation. So then it's a little bit like Dayal Mukunda's question. If it's just an issue with one person that I'm having an issue with, as opposed to others who are not so much having an issue with, go back to what is it about my having an issue with this person? Is it on the material or is it on the spiritual? And if it's on the material, how much importance should it get? If it's not, then it's on the spiritual. Or, Nandi Mukhi's comment, it's stacked on false ego. So it rubs me the wrong way. Something. So is the problem over there or is the problem over here? And until I can sort it out, it may be a good idea for you or me or someone that's having those feelings to keep a safe distance, but also to evaluate what's the basis of this discomfort with this one person. And is there something that I can do with the discomfort with this one person to make it, so it's not uncomfortable? Is there some realignment with Supersoul, this foundational false ego thing that I can do that doesn't rub me the wrong way? And if, the answer may be, the person's incorrigible or something like that. But if it may be so, when there's sufficient purity, like let's take Prabhupada. As he went on, he found persons that were irritated by him, like materialists. And then how did he deal with it? How do you deal with that's on the receiving end of some ill feeling, but he didn't have ill feeling on the soul platform. But the fellow in Bombay that was trying to cheat him, he understood he's a cheater. The man got his. It's like Prabhupada was rubbing his hands together. Ha ha ha. I knew he'd get his. But he was trying to cheat. So a response to your question is go back to the foundation of where ill feelings arise from, and the false ego part of where ill feelings arise from, and the other manifestations of the material energy arise from, the mind intelligence, and then the gross body. The foundation is false ego. And what to do about that? And then you start, it depends on the circumstance, how you're going to deal with it. In some cases, it's just keep a safe distance. But then, is there some way that my heart can be softened or their heart can be softened instead of, feeling uncomfortable? As you're raising your question, I'm thinking of a person or two in the course of my devotional service that have been an enigma to me and others. And it wasn't just me, it was this individual had a way of, targeting others and just making others their favorite target for a while. So keep a safe distance from such a person. But is there something that then, after that safe distance, is there something that I can do to help this person or be a better servant to this person? It's not like looking down, that's easy, but to be in service to this person, so that by being in service to this person, they can feel a little differently about themselves and how they go about their lives. It's a nice question. When that spirit of detachment is there may be other options besides just feeling some discomfort with this other person. There may not be. Super soul can give intelligence, and purity can encourage super soul to give intelligence, or other persons that can help that person, if not you. Delicate question. Relationships are a delicate topic, but it's important to learn these lessons so that that our path to God, back to Godhead, is clear. It's important. Our path to pure consciousness is clear. There's not just major obstructions. So it's a good question to ponder. It may take a while. You always have these good questions. Yeah, this is going to be our lesson, and then we're going to end.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
You found the magic button.
Following up on Mohan Leela Prabhu's question and clarifying what I heard, you said go to the foundation and find out whether it is material or spiritual. The discomfort is material or spiritual. What is an example of a spiritual discomfort? In most cases, in my opinion, it's material.
Well, you want some examples?
Spiritual discomfort.
Huh?
Spiritual discomfort.
But you want some examples? Well, for example, supposing one devotee is in the ninda phase. They're vilifying another. Discomfort, spiritual discomfort, because it's an offense. Or wishing to harm another, Vaishnava particularly. Spiritual discomfort, spiritual anger, spiritual action that may, it depends on the circumstance, what's appropriate for the circumstance, but that's a spiritual example. You okay?
Yes. So within the temple environment or anything related to like spiritual topic things, that would be a spiritual discomfort.
Say it again, because I'm having a hard time with the sound system in this temple. My ears and the sound system don't go well together. Try again.
So if I understood it correct, anything related to spiritual topics or spiritual, like temple or with devotees, then that's a spiritual.
Yeah, you list the things that are spiritual. Okay. We're going to end. We'll see you all tomorrow, hopefully. And those of you that came, thank you very much for coming. So, Paul, we're going to see you tomorrow or no? Yeah? Huh? Oh. Yeah, I got it. Can I tease you a little bit? I like the way you say ISKCON. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Just a few more minutes, devotees. Want to request anybody who has not registered yet for the retreat to please register. You can see Amrita Kelly for that, as well as if you can please sign up for services. There is a sign-up sheet in the WhatsApp group. That would be wonderful. There is a